Don't look in the mirror at 3:33 a.m. Part 1. My eyes snapped open, my phone screen glowing in the dark. The numbers 3:33 blinked like a malevolent reminder. I had woken up at this exact time for 7 consecutive nights. Not 3:32, not 3:30, always 3:33. My apartment in Reykjavik was eerily silent. I had moved to Iceland 3 weeks ago. The official reason was to conduct sleep research in the Arctic, where winters stretch with many sunless nights. But in truth, I was running away, fleeing the memories of Emma, from the nightmares of that fateful night. Knock, 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 I froze. The sound again, like someone tapping on the mirror, 3 distinct, evenly spaced knocks. I couldn't move. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the standing mirror in my bedroom, an antique piece the landlord insisted I shouldn't move. Knock, knock, knock again. My knees trembled as I slowly turned towards the mirror. Darkness enveloped the room, only the pale blue light from the digital clock shone on the mirror's surface. My reflection stared back, a pale face, eyes sunken from lack of sleep and weight. I hadn't blinked, but my reflection just did. "Hello?" My voice cracked, a whispered tremor. No answer, just the mournful whine of the Icelandic wind through the window crack. Gripping my blanket, I stared at the mirror. My reflection now had a smile I didn't feel on my own lips. My hand trembled, reaching for the light switch. The light flickered on, and the image in the mirror returned to normal. Elias Gunnarson, a 35-year-old sleep researcher with a several-day stubble, bloodshot eyes from sleep deprivation, looked exactly as I felt, exhausted and terrified. I pushed the blanket aside, my feet hitting the cold floor. Stumbling to the mirror, I examined its surface. It was an antique mirror with a dark wooden frame, its surface covered in a faint, milky haze like a thin veil between two worlds. "I'm going crazy," I mumbled, backing away from the mirror. Chronic sleep deprivation, visual misperceptions, it all had a scientific explanation. I grabbed my notebook from the bedside table. As a researcher, I'd begun logging these unusual awakenings, trying to find a pattern. But this waking was different. This was the first time I'd seen and heard something. As I was writing, I faintly heard a soft clattering from the bathroom. I froze, pen still in hand, ink bleeding onto the paper in a large black blot. "Elias," a voice whispered, vague as the wind. I threw down my notebook, bolted out of the bedroom, snatched my car keys and jacket. Within seconds, I was racing down the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest. Magnus's apartment door, the only neighbor I knew in the building, appeared before me. I stopped, trying to compose myself. Should I knock at almost 4:00 a.m.? He'd think I was insane. But when I turned back to look at my own apartment door, I saw a shadow flit past the window, a tall, slender figure with unusually long fingers. I hammered on Magnus's door like a madman. "Damn it, who is it?" A sleepy, irritated voice called from behind the door. When Magnus opened it, his silver hair disheveled, his pale blue eyes looked at me suspiciously. "Elias, what's wrong?" "I'm sorry, there's someone in my apartment." Magnus's eyes widened. "Are you sure? I saw a shadow, and before that the mirror." I trailed off, realizing how crazy I sounded. Magnus was silent for a moment, observing me, then he sighed. "Wait." He disappeared and returned with a kitchen knife. "All right, we'll check." We walked down the hallway, Magnus's shoes tapping on the old wooden floor. At the door, I handed him the keys with trembling hands. "I'll go first," Magnus whispered, slowly opening the door. The apartment was dark and silent. Magnus flipped on the light. Everything seemed intact, no sign of forced entry or disturbance. We checked every room, finally reaching the bedroom. The mirror still stood there, reflecting both of us perfectly normal. "No one's here," Magnus said, lowering the knife. "Are you sure you weren't dreaming?" "I wasn't dreaming," I insisted. There were knocks from the mirror and my reflection. It was out of sync. Magnus looked at me intently, not mockingly, but with concern. "Do you know when this apartment was built?" I shook my head. "In 1833. This entire building was built on the foundation of an ancient temple. They say it was once a site for rituals during the Viking Age." I looked at him, a chill spreading down my spine. "Are you trying to scare me?" "No," Magnus shook his head. "But you're not the first in this building to complain about strange things, especially in your apartment. So why didn't you tell me before I moved in?" "Because most people here are fine. I thought it was just urban legend, but now that you mention it." Magnus looked at the mirror with discomfort. "There's a story about the Watchers." According to legend, they exist between dimensions and can only cross over during the witching hour, from 3 to 4 a.m., with 3:33 being the time when the veil is thinnest. My heart seemed to stop. 3:33. They're drawn to those who accidentally see them, and when they mark someone. Magnus paused. What else? That person is never seen again. In that moment, the mirror's surface seemed to shimmer. Although nothing touched it, Magnus and I both backed away simultaneously. I don't think I'll be sleeping tonight, I said, my voice hoarse. Me neither, Magnus nodded. Coffee? As we left the bedroom, I couldn't help but glance back at the mirror one last time. And I swore that for a fleeting instant, I saw no reflection of myself in it, only an inky blackness and a pair of eyes staring back. Part 2. The Reykjavik Sleep Research Center was a modern building, a stark contrast to the historical architecture of the rest of the city. Glass walls reflected the weak winter morning light as I entered, my mind still reeling from the night before. Elias, you look like a zombie, Sigrid Johnstadter's voice cut through as I shuffled through the reception area. She was my research assistant, a sleep disorder specialist with neatly tied straight blonde hair and thick-rimmed black glasses. Thanks for the delicate observation, I mumbled, downing my third cup of coffee for the day. I didn't get much sleep. Again, she shook her head. You're researching sleep disorders and you're experiencing one yourself. Follow me to the office. We have our first intake session with subject A7 this afternoon. Are you lucid enough to participate? I'll be fine, I said, putting my bag down and opening my laptop. He's the one with prophetic dreams, right? That's right. Asgeir Magnusson, 52, claims to have dreams that predict events before they happen, especially focusing on natural disasters in Iceland. I nodded, trying to focus. Our research project focused on unusual sleep phenomena in the Arctic region, from insomnia during the sunless summer days to strange dreams attributed to the aurora borealis. However, I was particularly interested in a rare case, people who awoke simultaneously at 3:33 a.m. Sigrid, have you ever heard of the Watchers? She looked at me in surprise. The Watchers, like in folklore. Exactly. Entities believed to exist between dimensions, able to cross over at 3:33 a.m. Sigrid put down a file, looking at me intently. Elias, are you doing scientific research or delving into superstition? I'm trying to understand why so many people in this region wake up precisely at 3:33 a.m., I said, rubbing my temples. Could there be some natural phenomenon affecting the brain, causing the biological clock to reset at that specific time? Or is it simply a random coincidence magnified by folklore? Sigrid shrugged. But if you want to investigate the folklore aspect, you should talk to Anna Stefansdottir. She's an expert in Icelandic folklore at the University of Reykjavik, and she's also participating in our study, A12. I jotted down the information. Thanks, I'll contact her. When Sigrid left, I opened our data file on sleep patterns. A significant percentage of Icelanders reported waking up at 3:33 a.m., especially those living near historically significant sites. Many of them also reported similar symptoms: hallucinations, visual and auditory, and a sensation of being watched. Just like what I was experiencing. I was reading a particularly unsettling case when drowsiness overwhelmed me. Just for a second, my eyelids grew heavy, irresistibly. I was standing in a pitch-black room, surrounded by a multitude of mirrors. My reflection appeared in each one, but none of them moved with me. They stood still, heads tilted to one side, mouths stretched into unnaturally wide, grinning cuts. We have been waiting, all the reflections said in unison, their lips not moving. I tried to turn away, but couldn't. The reflections began to raise their hands, long, sharp nails clawing at the mirror's surface. A deafening shriek like fingernails on a blackboard. It's time, Elias. Blood began to seep from the scratches, flowing down the mirror's surface in bright red streams. A pungent, metallic smell assailed my nostrils. The blood flowed faster, pouring from the mirrors, rising to my ankles, then my knees. I realized it would engulf me. Elias, I shot up, gasping for breath. Sigrid was standing in front of me, gripping my shoulders, her eyes full of concern. You were screaming, she said, and God, your nose is bleeding? I touched my hand to my nose, and my fingers came away stained red. Blood flowed freely from both nostrils, soaking the front of my shirt. I have to go. I stumbled to my feet. You need to go to the hospital. That was a minor seizure. I've seen cases like that before, Sigrid said, her voice that of a medical professional. Let me drive you. No, I shook my head, dabbing at the blood with a tissue. It's not a seizure, just not enough sleep, I'll be fine. but I wasn't fine. When I looked down at my desk, I saw that blood had dripped onto a page, forming a strange shape. No, not a random shape. A symbol like an octagon with an eye in the center. The same symbol I had seen carved into the mirror frame in my bedroom. "I need to see Anna Stefansdottir," I said, my voice now hoarse. "Right now." Part 3. The humanities building of the University of Reykjavik was like a labyrinth of gray stone and open glass. I wandered through the quiet corridors, searching for Professor Anna Stefansdottir's office. Sigrid had reluctantly given me the address after I insisted it was an urgent research-related matter. Finally, I found an old wooden door with her name carved on a small plaque. Anna Stefansdottir, Professor of Icelandic Folklore and Historical Studies. I knocked, receiving a faint reply from within. As I entered, I could barely see her amidst the towering stacks of books and ancient artifacts. It was a small space with warm amber light, the smell of old books and herbal tea permeating the air. "Professor Stefansdottir?" I called, navigating between the piles of books. A raspy voice echoed from a corner of the room, where a tiny woman with long, flowing white hair sat at her desk, a reading lamp illuminating an ancient manuscript. "Who are you?" "Elias Gunnarson. I'm a researcher at the Sleep Research Center. We're studying abnormal sleep patterns, and I believe you can help me." Her sharp blue eyes seemed to pierce through me. "You've seen them, haven't you, the Watchers?" I froze. "How did you know?" "The sign," she said, pointing to my face. "The blood beneath your nose and your eyes, they have shadows in them that don't belong to you." A chill ran down my spine. "You know about them." "Sit down, Mr. Gunnarson. We have much to discuss." She gestured to the chair opposite her desk. "Where are you from? I can tell by your accent you're not local." "Stockholm originally, but I've studied and worked all over Scandinavia," I said, sitting down. "I only moved to Reykjavik 3 weeks ago to research the phenomenon of waking at 3:33. Anna nodded. "A common phenomenon here, but not many truly see them. Where are you living?" "An old apartment in Thingholt." I gave her the exact address, and Anna's aged face grew serious. "Vital Drahusiv, the House of White Magic, that's what it was called in ancient texts, built on the foundation of an old Norse temple. My neighbor said the same, but I need to know about these Watchers. What are they? Why am I seeing them?" Anna sighed deeply, stood up, and walked to a bookshelf. She pulled out an ancient, leather-bound book, its cover cracked and etched with strange symbols. "Edda's Obscure," she said. "A rare version of the poetic Edda, only a few copies exist. It contains passages not included in more popular versions. Passages about Metahimur, the world in between. Not the Midgard of humans, not the Asgard of gods, but a parallel realm where the Watchers dwell." She opened the book, flipping to a page with an illustration of tall, slender beings with long fingers and featureless faces, except for large, dark eyes. "They observe, they study, they collect." My heart pounded. That was precisely the creature I had seen in the mirror. "Collect what?" "Humans," Anna said simply. "They choose individuals capable of perceiving their presence, those with, I don't know what you'd call it in your scientific language, a higher frequency perception." "But why 3:33? In ancient Norse culture, a day was divided into 8 parts instead of 24 hours. The midpoint of the 4th part, the darkest part of the night, was believed to be when the veil between worlds was thinnest. In the modern time system, that translates to around 3:33 a.m. "And the mirrors," I whispered, remembering. "Portals, they are always portals." Anna nodded. "In almost every culture, mirrors are seen as boundaries between this world and the next. Ancient Vikings crafted polished bronze mirrors and used them in rituals to communicate with the dead." I took out my phone, opening the photo I had taken of the mirror frame in my bedroom. "This symbol, it's carved into the mirror frame." Anna squinted at the image, then quickly flipped through the book to a section on Vegvisir, a type of magical Norse compass said to help its bearer not get lost. "But this version has been altered," she said, pointing to the center of the symbol. "The eye in the middle is not traditional. That's the eye of the Watcher," I said, a wave of cold spreading over me. Anna looked at me intently. "I'm afraid you've been marked, Dr. Gunnarson. They have seen you, and now you can see them. The cycle has begun." "What cycle? Is there a way to stop it?" "In most folk tales, when the Watchers mark someone, they observe the victim for 7 nights. Then," she hesitated. "I've been waking at 3:33 for 7 consecutive nights," I whispered. Anna looked at me, her face pale. "Tonight is the 8th night." I stood up abruptly, the chair crashing to the floor. "There has to be a way to stop this. A protection ritual, an amulet, anything." "There are protective rituals," Anna said, also standing, "but they require preparation." She was cut off as my phone rang. I looked at the screen. Sigrid was calling. Excuse me, I have to take this, I told Anna, then pressed answer. Sigrid, Elias. Her voice sounded panicked. You need to come back to the center right away. Something happened with Asger, subject A7. What happened? He was in the sleep experiment. He started screaming about the watchers in the mirror. He said they were coming for him, and then he used a piece of broken mirror too. She couldn't finish. I'll be right there, I said, ending the call. Turning to Anna, I said quickly, I have to go, but I'll be back, please find any information about protection. Wait, Anna grabbed my arm as I moved to leave. Don't look in any mirror, not tonight. I nodded, then ran out of the office, my heart pounding in my chest. As I left the building, the sun had set. The Icelandic winter darkness enveloped the city. I looked at my phone's clock. 4:45 p.m. Less than 12 hours until 3:33 a.m. The Sleep Research Center was transformed. The blue lights of police cars reflected off the glass walls, creating shifting shadows like a nightmare. As I walked through the front door, an officer stopped me. Excuse me, this is a crime scene. No one is allowed in. I'm Dr. Elias Gunnarson. I work here. That's our research subject. The officer looked at me intently before waving someone inside. Detective, we have someone from the center here. A tall man with a neatly trimmed salt and pepper beard walked out. Dr. Gunnarson, I'm Detective Olaf Einarsson. I'm afraid we have some questions for you. Is he all right? Olaf shook his head. I'm sorry, he didn't make it. Too much blood loss before paramedics could arrive. My throat tightened. What happened? Come inside. We shouldn't discuss this out here. Olaf led me through the reception area to the main sleep research lab, where Asger should have been participating in the experiment. But instead of an organized lab, I stepped into a scene of bloody chaos. Blood covered the white walls and floor. The research bed was overturned, monitoring equipment shattered. The standing mirror we used to observe subjects' reactions during dream states was smashed into sharp fragments. And in the center of the floor, a large pool of blood where a man had severed his own carotid artery with a piece of broken mirror. My God, I whispered. Sigrid was sitting in a corner of the room, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, her eyes staring blankly into space. A female officer sat beside her, comforting her. Sigrid, I said, approaching her. I'm so sorry, I should have been here. She looked up at me, her eyes red from crying. He was talking about you right before. He said they were coming for Elias, the last one. Olaf narrowed his eyes. And what does that mean to you, doctor? I shook my head, but my eyes were drawn to something on the wall, written in blood, crude but clear, the Vegvisir symbol with the eye in the center, the same symbol as on my mirror. Beneath it were the words 3:33, the last one. He was delusional, I told Detective Olaf, trying to keep my voice steady. Possibly a hallucination due to sleep paradox. Did he ever talk to you about any strange beliefs before, about creatures in mirrors? No, I said. This was his first session. Olaf nodded, making notes in his pad. Then why do you think he mentioned your name? I don't know. It was a lie. I was beginning to understand something terrifying. Asger had seen them too, the Watchers, and in some way they had informed him about me. You don't look well, Dr. Gunnarson, Olaf remarked. You should sit down. I'm fine, I said, though the room was starting to spin. I just need some fresh air, excuse me. I stumbled out into the hallway, leaned against the wall, and took deep breaths. This was beyond all rational comprehension. According to Anna, the Watchers only took one person at a time. But if Asger had also seen them, if he too was marked, then why did he kill himself? Unless that was the only way to escape them. Elias, I jumped. Sigrid was standing beside me, still wrapped in the blanket. Despite her distress, she was concerned about me. I'm fine, I said. No, you're not, she said. You're waking up at 3:33, aren't you? Like Asger and the others in the study. That's why you started this project. I glanced around to make sure no one was listening. Sigrid, I need your help. I think I'm in danger. From what? I can't talk about it here, but I need to go to the university, see Anna Stefansdottir again. I need to know how to stop whatever is happening. Sigrid looked worried but nodded. Let me get my coat. We informed Detective Olaf that we would return tomorrow morning to complete our statements and quickly left the building. The sky was pitch black, wind-whipping snow across the streets of Reykjavik. In Sigrid's car, I told her everything. About waking at 3:33, about the mirror, about what Anna had told me. Elias, you know this sounds unscientific, Sigrid said as we rounded a corner. I know. A week ago, I would have said the same thing. But before I came here, why were we studying people who wake at 3:33? How common is it in Iceland? According to our data, about 8% of the population reports regularly waking up at that time, significantly higher than anywhere else in the world. And how many of them report seeing something in the mirror? Sigrid was silent for a moment. A third, but we categorized that as sleep hallucinations. What if it's not hallucinations? We arrived at the University of Reykjavik, but the campus was almost completely dark. Most buildings were closed at this hour. "Do you have Anna's phone number?" I asked as we stood before the locked humanities building. "Yes," Sigrid said, fumbling for her phone. "Here, the sharp, sudden sound of breaking glass echoed from a second-story window. We both froze. "That's Anna's office," Sigrid whispered. Without thinking, I ran to the main door, pulling hard, but it was locked. Looking around desperately, I saw a side entrance with a card access system. "Your card," I said to Sigrid. "Will it open this door?" She pulled out her ID card. "I don't know." A blood-curdling scream cut her off from the campus grounds directly from above. I looked up just in time to see a figure falling, and then the horrifying wet thud as a body hit the frozen ground just a few meters from us. "No," Sigrid screamed. I ran to the body, knowing exactly who it was. Anna Stefansdottir lay twisted on the ground, blood spreading beneath her white hair. One side of her head was crushed from the impact. Her eyes were still wide open, staring up at the starry night sky, and on her forehead, clear even in the faint light, was the Vegvisir symbol with the eye in the center, seemingly carved into her skin. "We need to call the police," I said, my voice alien to myself. But when I turned back to look at Sigrid, I saw her staring up at the window Anna had fallen from. And there, in the pitch-black window frame, was a tall, slender figure with unusually long, tapering fingers, looking down at us. It wasn't human. Part 4. "Elias, what's wrong?" Sigrid's voice trembled as she looked at me, her face ghostly pale in the streetlight. I realized she couldn't see it. The creature in the window was only visible to me. "We need to get out of here," I said, my voice hoarse, pulling Sigrid's arm sharply. "Right now." "But Anna, we can't just. She's dead, we can't help her anymore." I pulled her back to the car, constantly glancing up at the window where the creature still watched. As we got in the car, I yelled, "Go." "Drive now." Sigrid started the engine and sped out of the parking lot, tires squealing on the icy road. We shot through the campus gates. She was still in a panic. "I should drive to the police station," she said. "We have to report this." "No," I shook my head fiercely. "They won't believe us. There'll be more questions, more wasted time, and I don't have time. Sigrid, I don't have any more time." "What are you talking about?" "Take me to Anna's place, her house." "Do you know where she lives?" "No," I admitted, "but we need to find out. She was the only one who knew how to stop the Watchers, and she died because she knew too much. There has to be something in her house. Documents, books, something that can help me." Sigrid looked at me with concern as she stopped at an intersection. "Elias, you're panicking. We should go to the hospital. You haven't slept in days, you're having hallucinations." "I'm not crazy," I yelled, making her jump. I took a deep breath, trying to regain control. "Sorry, I know it sounds insane, but 2 people are dead, Sigrid, Asger and Anna. Both are connected to me and the Watchers. I'll be next if I don't find a way to stop them." Sigrid looked at me, seemingly in an internal struggle. Finally, she nodded. "I can find her address. She was registered as a subject in our study." She opened her phone and typed a few commands. "Here it is. Vestergat 17, a small house near Tjornin, the city lake. Let's go there." We drove to the old part of Reykjavik, where small, colorful houses stood side by side along narrow streets. Sigrid stopped the car in front of a pale blue house with red tile roofs and small paned windows. "How do we get in?" Sigrid asked as we got out of the car. "Leave it to me," I said, walking around to the back of the house. There, I found a small window leading into the kitchen, and after a few attempts, I managed to pry it open. "Through here." We squeezed through the window one by one and dropped into a small, antique kitchen. The house was pitch black, silent, and cold, as if no one had been there for a long time. Sigrid turned on her phone's flashlight, shining it around the room. "What are we looking for?" "Anything about the Watchers. Books, documents, notes?" We searched the small house. A living room with overflowing bookshelves, a bedroom with antique furniture, and a small room converted into an office. All were filled with books, papers, and strange artifacts. "I don't know what to look for," Sigrid admitted, looking at the immense piles of materials. "Edda's Obscura," I said. "That's the book she showed me, an old, dark brown leather cover." We searched for several minutes, flipping through hundreds of books. Finally, Sigrid gasped. "I found it!" From a bookshelf in the office, I rushed to her side. The book lay there, exactly as I had described. But when we opened it, the page with the Watcher's illustration was torn out. No, 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 I groaned. Someone got here before us. Or she hid it, Sigrid suggested, knowing it was dangerous. I looked around the room with new eyes. If she wanted to hide something truly important, where would she hide it? My eyes stopped at a faded painting on the wall, an ancient depiction of Yggdrasil, the world tree in Norse mythology. I walked over, took it off the wall, and as expected, behind it was a small safe. We need the password, Sigrid said. I examined the safe more closely. It wasn't an electronic safe, but an old-fashioned dial lock. 3 numbers, I whispered. 333. I spun the dial to the sequence and heard a soft click as the safe opened. How did you know? Sigrid asked, her eyes wide. It's always 333, I said simply. I opened the safe door. Inside was a small package wrapped in linen, tied with a leather cord. I carefully unwrapped it on Anna's desk. Inside was an ancient book, page the one torn from the obscure and a small silver object. This is a Vegvisir, I said, picking up the silver object, but not like the one on my mirror. It doesn't have the eye in the center. There's a note, Sigrid pointed out, retrieving a small piece of paper with Anna's handwriting. If someone finds this, it may be too late for me, but not too late for the reader. This Vegvisir is the original, untainted version. It protects its bearer from getting lost in the middle world. To stop the Watchers, the Tilbake ritual, the calling back ritual, must be performed at the place where they first marked the victim. Do this before the 8th night ends, or the passage will open permanently. Beneath the note was a series of detailed instructions for the ritual and a detailed drawing of the symbol to be drawn. The calling back ritual, I mumbled. This is exactly what I need. Elias, look, Sigrid pointed, her voice trembling. She was pointing to the very last line of Anna's note. Beware of mirrors. Even if you cannot see them, they are always watching through any reflective surface. A chill ran through me as I looked up, suddenly aware of Sigrid's turned-off phone screen, the dark windows, even her wristwatch all capable of reflection. We have to go, I said. I need to perform this ritual in my apartment where I first saw them. As we ran out to the car, I glanced at my phone. 11:42 p.m., less than 4 hours until 3:33 a.m. Not much time left, I whispered. Just then, all the streetlights on the street suddenly went out, plunging us into the inky blackness of the Icelandic night. Just a power outage, Sigrid said, but her voice didn't sound convinced as she turned the key to start the car. Happens often in winter during storms, she added, but there was no storm. The night was still, the sky clear and full of stars. This selective power outage seemed too much of a coincidence. The car headlights illuminated the road ahead as we drove, forming a tunnel of light through the encompassing darkness. How do we perform the ritual? Sigrid asked, her eyes fixed on the road. I looked at the note. We need to draw a special symbol, similar to the Vegvisir but more complex, with salt around the mirror. Then place this Vegvisir in the center and recite an ancient incantation. Is that all? It also requires a sacrifice. Sigrid glanced at me. What kind of sacrifice? Not what you think, I said. An object of deep personal significance, something deeply connected to myself. Do you have anything like that? I touched the ring on my finger, Emma's engagement ring. Yes, I do. We continued driving in silence. The streets of Reykjavik were strangely deserted, not a single person or car. Along the city lake, the lights were still out, the water inky black and still as a mirror. Suddenly, Sigrid slammed on the brakes. Elias, look. In the middle of the road ahead of us stood a man, Asger, blood still oozing from the wound on his neck, his eyes staring blankly straight at us. But that can't be him. Asger is dead. It's just an illusion, I said, though my heart was pounding. They're trying to stop us. Keep going. Sigrid floored the accelerator, and Asger's image dissolved like smoke as we drove through it. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw him still standing there, now turned, watching us. Faster. I urged. Sigrid sped up, turning onto a narrow street leading to my neighborhood. But as we approached, I realized the street seemed longer than usual, stretching endlessly into the darkness. Something's wrong, Sigrid said, her voice strained. We should have reached the intersection by now. I looked at the clock on the dashboard, 12:47. Time was moving faster than I thought. They're lengthening the road, I said. Turn off, take another way. Sigrid swerved left at the next intersection, and suddenly we found ourselves on a completely different, wider street with familiar old buildings. I know this place, she sighed in relief. We're almost there. But when we continued, another figure appeared in the road. This time, it was Anna, blood flowing from the wound on her head, her old eyes wide open. "Don't stop," I said. "It's just an illusion." Sigrid pressed the accelerator. But as we approached Anna, she suddenly transformed into a column of black smoke that swirled around the car. "I can't see anything," Sigrid cried, trying to peer through the obscured windshield. "Just keep going straight." The black smoke completely enveloped the car, and for a moment, we drove in absolute darkness. Then suddenly, we burst out of the black cloud, and my apartment building appeared directly in front of us. "We made it," I sighed in relief as Sigrid quickly parked the car. We ran into the building, and I was surprised to find it still had power. The hallway lights were on, and the elevator was working. We went up to the 5th floor, and I unlocked my apartment door with trembling hands. The apartment was dark and cold. I flipped the light switch, but nothing happened. "Power outage in your apartment," Sigrid said, turning on her phone's flashlight. "Or they cut it," I said. "Get candles from the kitchen cabinet. We need light to perform the ritual." While Sigrid searched for candles, I got salt from the kitchen cabinet and reread the instructions for the ritual. We needed to draw the symbol around the mirror, place the silver Vegvisir in the center, and recite the incantation while sacrificing a personally significant object. "Found them," Sigrid called, returning with a bundle of candles. We went into the bedroom, where the standing mirror remained silent in the darkness. Surface seemed pitch black, reflecting no light from Sigrid's flashlight. "Unnatural," I whispered. Sigrid placed and lit the candles around the room, creating a faint circle of light. I began to sprinkle salt, forming the complex symbol around the mirror according to Anna's drawing in the note. "Elias, look at the clock," Sigrid whispered. I looked at the digital clock on the bedside table. 3:17 a.m. How could that be? We had only entered the apartment a few minutes ago. Time. "It's moving faster," I said, drawing faster. "We don't have much time." As I completed the salt symbol, Sigrid placed the remaining candles at strategic points around it. I took out the silver Vegvisir, my hands trembling. 3:28, hurry," Sigrid urged. I placed the Vegvisir in the center of the salt symbol, directly beneath the mirror. Then I removed the engagement ring from my finger. "Emma, I'm sorry," I whispered, looking at the ring one last time before placing it beside the Vegvisir. 3:31, Elias, start the incantation." I opened Anna's note, began to read aloud the ancient words in Old Norse. The language was alien, difficult to pronounce, but I tried my best. After Frasagam Furt, skill after myrrh. The atmosphere in the room changed, becoming heavy and thick. The candle flames danced, though there was no breeze, and the darkness seemed to deepen in the corners of the room. The mirror began to vibrate, emitting a metallic groaning sound like bending metal. The surface was no longer pitch black but began to seethe like water, ripples spreading from the center to the edges. 3:33. Just then, the liquid on the mirror began to rise, stretching out like long, thin, inky black fingers. "Keep reading," Sigrid yelled. I recited the final line, my voice breaking with fear. "Getini." By this sign, I closed the gate. A terrifying roar erupted from the mirror, and a completely black hand shot out, grabbing my neck with immense force. I fell backward, struggling against the suffocating grip. "Elias," Sigrid cried, rushing to help me, but a second hand emerged from the mirror, pushing her back. I could feel my consciousness fading as the grip around my throat tightened. In desperation, I reached for Emma's engagement ring and with a final effort threw it at the mirror. There was a deafening shriek, like glass shattering 1,000 times over. The black hand released my neck and I fell to the floor, coughing violently. When I looked up, I saw the mirror cracking from the center, fissures spreading like a spider web. "Did it work?" Sigrid whispered, crawling towards me. I couldn't answer in time. The mirror exploded into thousands of fragments, scattering across the room with terrifying speed. I pulled Sigrid down, trying to shield her from the knife-sharp shards. The rain of glass stopped and the room fell into absolute silence. I carefully raised my head. The mirror frame was now empty, and in the center of the salt symbol, the silver Vegvisir glowed with a faint silver light. "Elias, you did it," Sigrid whispered, her face and hands covered in tiny cuts from the mirror shards. I nodded, unable to speak due to my raw throat. We had succeeded, the gate was closed. The watchers had been forced back into their world, but as I staggered to my feet, Sigrid suddenly screamed in horror. I turned and saw her staring at one of the large mirror fragments on the floor. In it, not our reflection or the room, but another world, a black, inky space with tall, slender figures moving. And in the center, my engagement ring floated in the void. "It's not over," I whispered. Every broken mirror shard in the room suddenly glowed, each fragment a tiny window into the world of the Watchers. And from each fragment, a black hand began to reach out. "Run!" I screamed, pulling Sigrid violently out of the bedroom. We raced down the hallway while behind us, hundreds of inky black hands reached out from the broken mirror shards, chasing us. I slammed the bedroom door shut, but knew it wouldn't hold them for long. We ran into the living room, looking around frantically. "Which way out?" Sigrid gasped. "The front door." But as we moved towards the door, I realized something horrifying. Every reflective surface in the apartment was vibrating: the television screen, the dark windows, even the polished metal objects in the kitchen. All could become portals for the Watchers. "We need to destroy everything that can reflect," I said quickly. Sigrid didn't need to be told twice. She grabbed a chair and hurled it at the television screen. I grabbed towels and covered every metal surface I could find. Behind us, the bedroom door burst open, and a cloud of black smoke poured out, coiling down the hallway like hungry snakes. "Sigrid, the salt!" I yelled, remembering. "Sprinkle salt around the front door." She dashed into the kitchen, grabbed the salt shaker we had used for the ritual, and began to draw a line across the doorway. I pulled chairs, tables, anything I could move to barricade the hallway. The black smoke drew closer, and within it I could see moving figures. No, not figures. Tall, slender creatures with unusually long fingers, hundreds, perhaps thousands, all advancing towards us. "Elias, the salt is ready," Sigrid called. I backed towards the door, trying not to look at the black smoke. But as I passed the large living room window, a black arm shot out from the glass, seizing my wrist. "No!" I cried, struggling, but it was too strong. The arm began to pull me towards the window, where I could see another world on the other side, an inky black space with glowing eyes staring. Sigrid rushed over, salt shaker in hand, and threw a handful of salt at the black arm. There was a terrible hiss, and the arm released its grip, retracting back into the window. Burn marks appeared on my wrist as if my skin had been splashed with acid. "The salt hurts them," Sigrid gasped. "It hurts you too." "That means I'm infected," I whispered, looking at the wound on my wrist. It was smoking faintly, skin charred black around the burn. "They marked me deeper than I thought." Sigrid pulled me towards the front door where she had created a salt barrier. The black smoke now filled the living room, arms and hands reaching out from every dark corner. "Open the door," she yelled. I reached for the doorknob, but my fingers slid right through it, as if my hand were an illusion. I tried again, using all my strength, but couldn't grasp the handle. "I can't," I gasped. "You try." Sigrid pushed me aside and grabbed the handle. The door opened easily, and the hallway outside appeared before us, brightly lit and strangely normal. "Come on," she yelled, pulling me across the threshold. But when I tried to step over the salt line, I couldn't. It was as if there was an invisible wall I couldn't cross. I slammed against it desperately, but nothing changed. "Elias, what is it?" Sigrid asked, her voice full of fear. She had crossed easily and was standing in the hallway. "I can't cross the salt line," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm too deeply infected. The salt protects against them, and now it protects against me too." Behind me, the black smoke thickened, hands reaching towards us. I could feel them pulling me back as if hundreds of invisible threads were attached to my back. "Sigrid, you have to go," I said, pushing her further into the hallway. "Find Anna's other materials, find a way to rescue me." "No," she cried, tears streaming down her face. "I can't leave you. You have to go," I screamed as I felt the first hands touch my shoulders. They were pulling me back. With a strong yank, I was jerked backward into the apartment. The door slammed shut in front of Sigrid. The last thing I saw was her horrified face as she pounded on the door, her mouth screaming my name without a sound. I was dragged across the living room into the hallway, towards the bedroom. I clawed at the floor, but it was useless. Dozens of black hands had seized me, pulling me towards the empty mirror frame. And behind that frame, it was no longer the apartment wall, but a deep black void leading to a space unlike anywhere on Earth. I screamed as I was pulled into nothingness, and the world I knew disappeared. Part 5. I awoke in an icy cold. Not the cold of an Icelandic winter, but a bone-deep cold from within, as if every atom in my body vibrated in a state of near freezing. I opened my eyes, but there was nothing to see, only absolute darkness. I lay motionless, trying to orient myself. I was lying on a solid surface, cold as ice, with no sound, no smell, not a trace of light. "Is anyone there?" I whispered, and started at the sound of my own voice. Not because it echoed in a normal way, but because it echoed in every direction at once, as if space here operated under different rules. I slowly sat up, my body feeling heavy and alien. The wound on my wrist no longer hurt, but when I touched it, I felt a raised pattern. The Vegvisir with the eye in the center was now carved into my flesh. A flicker of light appeared in the distance, faint as a solitary star. I stood up, stumbling towards it. As I drew closer, I realized it wasn't natural light. It was a reflection on a small mirror shard floating in midair. I leaned down to look. In that mirror fragment, I saw a clear image. Sigrid stood outside my apartment door, pounding desperately and screaming my name. A frozen scene, as if time had stopped. I reached out to touch the mirror shard, but it drifted away before I could reach it. "You have arrived," a voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Not a single voice, but thousands of voices at once, sliding into each other, forming a sound unlike human speech. I turned, trying to find the source of the voice, but saw nothing in the darkness. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling. "We are the Watchers," the voice continued. "We have always been here, always watching, always waiting." Gradually, as my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I began to discern the shapes around me. Not a room or a space as I understood it, but a network. Fragments of broken mirrors floating in the void. Each fragment contained a different scene, frozen moments in time from countless different lives. And among them, standing in a circle around me, were they the Watchers. Tall and gaunt, with unnaturally slender bodies, pale skin almost translucent, and unusually long fingers. Their faces were blank, featureless except for large, inky black eyes with no whites. "We have waited for you for a long time, Elias Gunnarson," they said in unison, their lips not moving because they had no mouths. "The last one." "The last one of what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though my heart was pounding. "And what do you want from me?" "The last one of the cycle of the circle of the Pact." One of the creatures stepped forward, taller than the others. It raised a long, sharp finger and pointed at my forehead. I tried to recoil but couldn't move. "We have observed humankind through the cracks between worlds for millennia. We have collected, learned, remembered." The finger touched my forehead, and a horrible pain erupted in my head. I screamed as thousands of images flooded my mind. Memories that weren't mine, lives that weren't mine. I saw humans in every age, every civilization, confronting the Watchers. I saw them being pulled into this world, analyzed, dissected, collected. And I saw the Pact, an ancient agreement made by the first Viking shamans, allowing the Watchers to take 7 individuals every 700 years in exchange for protection from even darker forces. "You are the 7th of the 3rd cycle," the Watchers said. "The last one. When we are finished with you, the Pact will be complete, and we will be free." The finger retracted from my forehead, and I fell to my knees, gasping for breath, my head throbbing. "Finished what?" I gasped. "What will you do with me?" "We will collect you as we have collected the others." I looked around at the floating mirror shards, and the terrifying truth dawned on me. In each fragment was not just a moment in time, but a piece of a trapped soul. The 6 before me from this cycle, and before that 14 others from the 2 previous cycles. "The old man, he spoke of you," a different voice echoed, distinct from the others. I turned and saw, in a larger mirror shard, Asger's face looking at me. Not a still image, but Asger actually speaking to me from within the mirror fragment. "The lead Watcher came to me in a dream. It said you were the key. It wanted me to warn you." "Warn me?" I asked, stepping towards the mirror shard. "Then why did you kill yourself?" "I didn't kill myself," Asger said, his eyes wide. "They killed me. When I tried to warn you, they used my body like a puppet, but they couldn't fully control my mind. I could still send you a message." Another mirror shard lit up, and Anna's face appeared. "Elias, listen to me," she said urgently. "They tricked us. The Tilbake ritual doesn't push them out. It pulls you in. It's a trap." "Then how do I get out of here?" I asked. "No one can leave Metahimur," the Watchers said in unison. "But you are not here as a captive, Elias Gunnarson. You are here as a bridge." "A bridge to where?" "To the human world." A larger mirror shard appeared before me, and in it I saw a familiar scene. My bedroom in Reykjavik, still in disarray after the failed ritual. But now there was something else in the center. The empty standing mirror frame had become a fully open portal, and through that portal inky black shapes were moving, seeping into the human world. "We have completed the Pact," the Watchers said. 7 for each cycle, 3 cycles, 21 souls. "And now with you, the last one, the gate has opened fully." Horror flooded my mind as I looked at the scene in the mirror. "What will you do to my world?" "Your world?" They laughed, a sound like shattering glass. "It was never your world. Humans are merely temporary guests, and now the true masters are returning." I saw in the mirror the black shadows spreading throughout Reykjavik, slithering through windows, mirrors, screens, any reflective surface. Each shadow was a watcher entering the human world. But why wait until now? Why the pact? We cannot exist in the physical world without an anchor. We need a bridge, a being who has touched both worlds. The first 20 created the bridge. The last one, you, completes it. I recoiled, but felt cold hands seize my shoulders, holding me in place. I knew what they would do next. They would dissect me, as they had done with the others, turning me into a fragment in the grand mosaic of mirror shards. But something wasn't right. A thought flashed through my mind, a memory that wasn't mine. Emma, I whispered. The watchers froze. That name has no meaning here. But it does, I said. Emma, my fiancée, the one I thought I lost in a car accident a year ago. But in the flood of memories the watchers pushed into my mind, I caught a glimpse of a familiar face. My Emma is here in this mirror world. Where is she? I asked, my voice suddenly hardening. You took her. Emma didn't die in the accident, you took her. An unforeseen accident, one of the watchers said, its voice suddenly defensive. We needed 7, no more, no less. This woman was not part of the plan. Let me see her, I snarled. That is not possible. Let me see her, I roared, and suddenly all the mirror shards around me vibrated, reacting to my fury. The watchers recoiled, almost fearful. I was surprised but had no time to think about it. I focused on visualizing her face, her smile, her laugh, and a new mirror shard appeared before me. In it I saw her, my Emma, as beautiful as the last day I saw her, but her eyes were empty, as if her soul had been drained. Emma, I whispered, touching the mirror shard. Her eyes flickered and a faint spark returned. Elias, she whispered. Are you really here, or is this another one of their games? I'm here, Emma, it's really me. Tears streamed down her face. I thought you were dead. They said you died in the accident. They lied, I said, turning back to the watchers with a look of pure hatred. They tricked both of us. I turned back to Emma. I'll get you out of here, I promise. Impossible, the watchers said. No one can leave Metahimur. A soul once captured here will forever be a part of us. But a thought sparked in my mind. I wasn't entirely here. Not like Emma and the others. I still had a connection to the real world. The gate was still open. The key, I whispered. I'm not just the last one, I'm the key. I focused on the wound on my wrist, where the Vegvisir symbol with the eye was carved into my skin. But not the Watcher's Vegvisir. It was my Vegvisir, created from Emma's and my engagement ring, the symbol of our love. We don't just need 7 people, I said, my voice echoing through the strange space, but 7 links. I tilted my head back and screamed, Sigrid, find the mirror, find the ring. Part 6. Sigrid Jonstatir stood in my apartment, staring at the empty mirror frame through which I had disappeared. Her eyes were red from crying, but her gaze was resolute. There has to be a way, she whispered to herself, stepping carefully over the broken mirror shards scattered across the floor. Each fragment seemed to shimmer faintly, as if alive, but there was no longer any immediate danger from them. The black hands had vanished, but Sigrid knew they would return. They had taken Elias and were now completing whatever dark plan they had. Her house, Sigrid told herself. There must be something at Anna's house. She picked up the salt shaker, carefully sprinkling it around herself like an invisible armor, then left the apartment, locking the door behind her. Her car was still parked outside the building, and within minutes, she was speeding through the dark streets of Reykjavik, heading towards Professor Anna Stefansdottir's blue house. Upon arriving, Sigrid was surprised to see the lights on inside the house. She approached cautiously, holding the salt shaker like a weapon. When she peered through the kitchen window, the same window they had broken into earlier, she saw a man bending over books and papers on the kitchen table. Magnus, she whispered, recognizing Elias' neighbor. The man looked up and Sigrid recoiled in shock. It was Magnus, but his eyes were inky black with no whites, just like the Watcher's eyes. She ran towards the front door, but just as her hand touched the handle, it swung open. Magnus stood there, smiling, a smile that didn't reach his black eyes. We have been waiting for you, Sigrid Jonstatir, he said, but not in Magnus's voice. It was a voice composed of many overlapping voices, echoing and unnatural. Sigrid threw a handful of salt in his face, but Magnus, or whatever was controlling him, only laughed louder. Salt cannot protect you from what is already a part of this world, he said. The first Watchers here were not invaders. We were invited in through the Pact, and now the Pact is complete. What do you want? Sigrid asked, backing away, trying to find an escape route. The same thing you want, Magnus said, stepping aside to reveal the open doorway. To find Elias Gunnarson. Sigrid hesitated, then carefully stepped into the house, always maintaining distance from Magnus. In the kitchen, she saw Anna's books stacked high, and on top, the Eddas Obscura. "You can't save him," Magnus said, stepping in after Sigrid and closing the door. "No one can leave Metahimur once they're in there, but he can save you." "What are you talking about?" "The pact is complete," Magnus said, the words spilling out faster, almost excitedly. 7 for each cycle, 3 cycles, 700 years for each cycle. 21 souls have been collected, and now the Watchers are free. Free from Metahimur, free to return to this world, the world we once dominated. I don't understand. We were here before. Before humans became the dominant species, we built cities of glass and light and used mirror space to travel between worlds. But we were defeated, driven into Metahimur by ancient magic, imprisoned, until a pact was made, allowing us to take the souls necessary to reopen the gate. Magnus took a step closer. And now the gate is open. We are returning. This world will once again be ours. I still don't understand why you're telling me this, Sigrid said, fumbling behind her, searching for anything she could use as a weapon. Because there's a small problem. Magnus tilted his head, his black eyes looking through the window, where night had enveloped Reykjavik. Elias Gunnarson, he is not like the others. He created a link we did not anticipate, a link with the woman Emma. Sigrid squinted. His fiancée, who died in a car accident. She didn't die, Magnus said. She, like Asger, like Anna, like the others, was taken. She was one of the 7 of the 3rd cycle, but unlike the others, she had a link, the ring. Sigrid suddenly remembered the engagement ring Elias had used in the ritual, the ring he had sacrificed. Not a sacrifice, Magnus shook his head. It was a bridge, a link between 2 worlds, and now Elias is using it. Using it how? We don't know, Magnus admitted, and for the first time there was a flicker of anxiety in that spectral voice. But he is searching for it, and if he finds it, he can break the pact, close the gate forever. Sigrid tried to hide the sudden flicker of hope on her face. "And you want me to help you find the ring to stop him?" "To be precise, no," Magnus smiled, the smile looking unnatural on his old face. "We want you as bait." Before Sigrid could react, Magnus lunged forward with supernatural speed. His unusually long fingers reached out and wrapped around her throat. Sigrid struggled, trying to scream, but the air was choked from her lungs. "Elias will never save that woman," Magnus growled into her face. "But perhaps he will try to save you, and when he tries, we will find the ring." Sigrid's world darkened, bright spots dancing before her eyes. But as her consciousness faded, she felt her hand touch something on the kitchen table, a small, cold metal object. Her fingers curled around it, and in a last-ditch effort, she swung it forward, plunging it forcefully into Magnus's neck. A blood-curdling shriek, not Magnus's, but of the thing inside him, echoed as blood spurted from the wound. Sigrid fell to the floor, gasping for breath, air rushing back into her lungs. When she looked up, Magnus was clutching his neck, blood flowing through his fingers. But his eyes were no longer black, they had returned to their normal pale blue. "Thank you," he whispered, his own voice again. "I couldn't control it, it's been inside me for too long." Magnus stumbled to his feet. "Is it really you?" "It's me," he nodded, blood still flowing from the wound, but not as much as Sigrid had feared. "I've been influenced for a long time, living in that building, living near the gate." "We need to bandage your wound," Sigrid said, looking down at the object she had used as a weapon, an antique quill pen with a sharp silver tip. "No time," Magnus shook his head. "Listen, Elias, he needs the ring, it's the key." "Key to what?" "To close the gate, to reverse the pact, but it's no longer in this world." "Then where is it?" "In Metahimur. When Elias threw it at the mirror, it passed through, but no one can find it there except..." "Except who?" "The woman Emma." Magnus looked directly into Sigrid's eyes. Only she can find it, only she can reverse the pact. "How can I help?" Sigrid asked. "I can't go into Metahimur." "No," Magnus shook his head. "But you can contact Elias, find an intact mirror, a mirror not tainted by the Watchers, and use this." He weakly pointed to the Eddas Obscura on the table. "Page 33, the Restoration Ritual." Sigrid grabbed the book, flipping to the designated page. There, written in dark red ink, was a ritual very different from the Tilbake Cal Elias had attempted. "She protected it," Magnus said, referring to Anna. "Hid it. This is the only copy, and the Watchers have been trying to find it for centuries." Sigrid scanned the ritual, but it required the blood of one of the Watchers. Magnus smiled again, this time a painful but genuine smile. "I have lived near the gate for too long, Sigrid Jonstatir. I am deeply infected. My blood is no longer entirely human." He held out his hand, drops of blood still falling from the wound on his neck. And in the light, Sigrid could see that his blood wasn't entirely red. It shimmered with a deep, inky black. "Take it," he said, "and save Elias, save all of us." In Metahimur, I stood opposite the Watchers, feeling a strange new power coursing through my veins. The moment I realized Emma was here, that she had been taken before me, a new level of awareness had opened. I was no longer just prey, I was the key. "You cannot fight us," the lead Watcher said, stepping forward, taller than the others, with a faint blue crown of light on its hairless head. "The gate is open, the pact is complete. Your world is now ours." "No," I shook my head, focusing on the link I felt with Emma. "The pact is not complete. You said 7 individuals, 3 cycles, but you took 8 individuals in the 3rd cycle." The Watchers exchanged glances, and I sensed their unease. "Emma was a mistake," the lead Watcher admitted. "We only needed 7, she was redundant." "Nothing is redundant," I said, stepping towards the mirror shard containing Emma's face. "Every action has a consequence. Every decision creates a ripple. When you took Emma, you broke your own rules." "That doesn't matter," the lead Watcher roared, its voice shaking the space. "The gate is open. The Watchers are returning to the world. But you missed a small detail in your own pact," I said, looking straight into its black eyes. "You need 7 souls, no more, no less, but by taking Emma, you created an 8th link." I raised my wrist, where the Vegvisir symbol with the eye was carved into my skin. "And that gives me power here." I focused on the symbol and felt it grow hot on my skin. Every mirror shard in this strange world began to vibrate, reacting to my will. "Elias," Emma called from her mirror shard. "I'm feeling something a pull." "It's the ring," I told her. "Our engagement ring." I threw it into the mirror. "It must be somewhere in this world. Can you feel it?" Emma closed her eyes, concentrating. "Yes, I think so, a warm feeling like when you put it on my finger." "Find it," I urged. "You're the only one who can find it." Emma disappeared from her mirror shard, leaving only darkness. The Watchers moved around me, visibly anxious. "Stop," the lead Watcher commanded. "If you break the pact, both worlds will collapse, the mirror space will crumble. Even more horrific entities than us will be free." "You lie," I said, feeling the truth. "You're afraid, not because the world will end, but because you will be trapped here forever." The ground beneath my feet began to shake, and the space around me distorted. The mirror shards began to move faster, spinning around me. "Elias," a voice called out, not Emma's, but Sigrid's. "Can you hear me?" I looked up and saw a new mirror shard forming, larger than the others. In it, I could see Sigrid standing in my bedroom in Reykjavik before the empty mirror frame. "Sigrid," I called back. "How did you—" "Magnus," she said quickly. "He helped me. He gave me this ritual." "The restoration ritual? I can talk to you, but not for long. You need to find the ring." "Emma is looking," I said. "I found her, Sigrid. Emma is here." Her eyes widened. "Anna was right. The pact was broken when they took too many." "Yes, and that's our only chance. But you need to know how to use the ring when Emma finds it. Magnus told me it's a piece from our world, an object that still holds the essence of our space and time. If you can use it to create a true Vegvisir symbol, not the corrupted one with the eye, you can use it to break the pact and bring us all home." Sigrid shook her head. "Only you and Emma, Elias. The others, they've been there too long. They've become a part of Metahimur." My heart sank. "No, it can't be. There has to be a way." "Elias," Emma's voice called from a distance. "I found it." Emma reappeared in her mirror shard, holding the engagement ring. Glowed with a warm golden light, standing out against the darkness of Metahimur. "How?" the lead Watcher roared. "It's glowing," Emma said. "Elias, it's calling to me, it wants to go home." "You paid attention to the ring, but not its meaning," I told the Watchers. "It's not just an object from our world. It's a promise, a link between 2 souls. And that link is stronger than any pact you can create." I raised my hand towards the mirror shard containing Emma. "Can you give it to me?" Emma reached her hand through the mirror shard, and an impossible thing happened. Her hand reached out, piercing the mirror's surface, holding the ring in her palm. I reached for it, and our fingers touched. In that moment, a wave of energy erupted, pushing the Watchers back. The mirror shard containing Emma shattered, but instead of dissolving, it expanded, forming a brilliant portal of light. "No!" the lead Watcher shrieked, lunging towards us. But I had grasped Emma's hand, and together we clutched the ring. I pressed it against the Vegvisir symbol on my wrist and felt a searing pain as it touched the wound. The symbol transformed. The eye in the center vanished, replaced by the true shape of the Vegvisir, the ancient Norse compass designed so its bearer would never get lost. "Mirror space," I whispered. "The network of paths between worlds show us the way home." a brilliant light exploded from the ring, illuminating the new symbol on my wrist. Every mirror shard in Metahimur shattered simultaneously, the sound like 1,000 bells ringing at once. Elias, Emma, now, Sigrid's voice echoed from the light portal. Jump! I gripped Emma's hand, and together we plunged into the glowing portal. Behind us, the angry roars of the Watchers chased us, but with each passing second, the sound faded. We were falling through space, through time, through reality itself. Everything we had ever known and believed shattered into 1,000 mirror fragments, only to reform into a new shape. And then, we landed, bruised and gasping, on the hard wooden floor of my bedroom in Reykjavik. Part 7. The night had faded. The faint sunlight of the Icelandic dawn filtered through the window crack. I lay on the floor, feeling the warmth beside me. Emma was breathing steadily in her sleep. A worried face leaned over us. Sigrid, her eyes red from exhaustion but full of relief. "You're back," she whispered. I slowly sat up, careful not to wake Emma. The bedroom looked as if a tornado had swept through it, broken mirror shards everywhere, furniture overturned, and in the center the empty mirror frame still stood, but changed. It was no longer a portal, just an empty wooden frame. "What happened?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "You did it," Sigrid said, rubbing her tired eyes. "You reversed the pact, the gate is closed. The Watchers are gone, or at least pushed back into Metahimur. Magnus said that now the pact is reversed, they will be trapped there forever." I looked down at my wrist. The Vegvisir symbol was still there, but it was no longer a wound. It had become a thin, silver scar in the true shape of the Vegvisir, without the eye in the center. "Magnus," I said, remembering my neighbor, "he was deeply infected too." Sigrid nodded, her face sad. "He knew, that's why he helped us. He gave me his blood." Blood that had been altered by the Watchers so I could perform the restoration ritual. "Is he all right?" Sigrid shook her head. "He dissolved when the gate closed, along with everyone else who had been infected." I closed my eyes, feeling the pain for the man who had helped us so much. He saved us, all of us. "Elias," a weak voice called. Emma had woken up, looking around with disoriented eyes. "Are we home?" "Yes," I whispered, pulling her into my arms. "We're home." "I think you both need to go to the hospital," Sigrid said, looking at our cuts and bruises. "And then maybe a few therapy sessions." I managed a weak smile. I don't think any therapist could understand what we just went through. We both laughed, a tired, relieved sound from those who had just escaped a nightmare. But as the laughter died, a strange feeling enveloped the room. Not the presence of the Watchers, but something else. A sense that reality hadn't quite settled yet. I looked around and noticed the broken mirror shards glittering in a strange way, not reflecting the dawn light, but reflecting a different kind of light. "Sigrid," I said, my voice serious, "collect all the mirror shards, we need to destroy them." "Why?" "Because they no longer belong to this world. They've been changed by Metahimur." Emma nodded, pulling away from my embrace and standing up. "He's right, I can feel them. They're still watching." We carefully collected every mirror shard, putting them into a large plastic bag. I took the empty mirror frame down from the wall and added it. "We'll take them all to a safe place and destroy them." As we prepared to leave, I paused at the threshold, looking back at the bedroom that had become the scene of an interdimensional battle. Not everyone survived, but we won. The pact was broken, and the Watchers had been pushed back into Metahimur. But as I turned away, I couldn't shake the feeling of something staring at the back of my neck, a sense that eyes were still watching from beyond reality. "It's never truly over, is it?" I asked softly. "I don't think so," Sigrid admitted. "But Magnus said they can't return for at least 700 years. The pact has been reversed." "Then we have plenty of time," Emma said, taking my hand. I smiled and squeezed her hand tighter. The months of waiting in Metahimur seemed not to have changed her, and for me, it had only been days since I thought I'd lost her forever. "But before all that," I said, "I think we should go to the hospital," as Sigrid suggested. As we left the apartment, the sun was higher, chasing away the darkness of the long Icelandic night. I couldn't help but glance one last time at Magnus's apartment. The door was tightly shut, silent. "There's one thing I still don't understand," Sigrid said as we walked down the stairs. "Why 3:33? Why is that exact time so important?" I thought for a moment. Perhaps it's not the time, but the number. 3 times 3, 3 cycles, 7 people each cycle. They're all numbers with significance in many cultures. "Or perhaps," Emma said, a strange expression fleeting across her face, "it's the time when reality is thinnest, when anything can happen." I glanced at her, a new question forming in my mind. How long had she been in Metahimur, and what had she learned during that time? But those were questions for another day. Today, we had survived. We had escaped the Watchers. And perhaps most importantly, we had found each other again. As we stepped out into the daylight, I couldn't help but notice our reflections in the building windows, on Sigrid's wristwatch, even in the puddles on the street. And for a brief moment, I swore all the reflections had a fleeting smile that our real faces did not. 6 months passed since the events in Reykjavik. Emma and I moved to a small house in rural Sweden, a few hours' drive from Stockholm. No close neighbors, no large mirrors on the walls, and most importantly, no awakenings at 3:33 a.m. Sigrid remained in Iceland, continuing her research. Although now she focused on folklore and supernatural phenomena in Norse culture, a shift her colleagues found peculiar after her breakthroughs in sleep research. We kept in touch, though we rarely spoke of what happened in that apartment. Some experiences are too profound, too life-altering for words to fully describe. However, tonight, as I sat in my small study, writing about our experiences, disguised as a horror novel, I couldn't help but reflect on what had happened and what might still happen. A soft knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. Emma walked in, carrying 2 steaming mugs of tea. "Still writing?" she asked, placing a mug beside my laptop. "Memories," I said, turning my chair to face her. "Sometimes I wonder if we should tell someone to warn them." "About what?" Emma asked, sitting next to me. "About the invisible beings that live in mirrors and only appear at 3:33 a.m.? Who would believe us?" I smiled, touching the Vegvisir scar on my wrist. "I guess so." "Does it still hurt?" Emma shook her head. After returning, she also had an identical scar, a consequence of her prolonged time in Metahimur. "Not anymore, but sometimes it feels warm when we're near mirrors." I nodded. I felt it too, a warm, almost vibrating sensation when we were near any reflective surface, as if the scar was warning us. "Sigrid called today," I said. "She found more information about the Watchers." Emma raised an eyebrow. "Oh." In an ancient text Anna had left on her computer. It mentioned a 4th cycle, something not referenced in the original Pact. What does a 4th cycle mean? Sigrid isn't sure, but she found a reference to the Eternal Watcher, a being that can travel freely between Metahimur and our world, unbound by the Pact. Emma was silent for a moment, her gaze distant. "Do you think it's truly over?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Sometimes I have a feeling that we're only seeing a part of a larger picture, a chess game where we're just pawns," Emma whispered. I looked at her more closely. Sometimes, in moments like these, I wondered if the Emma I brought back from Metahimur was truly the Emma I had lost. She was identical, the same smile, the same laugh, the same way she tilted her head when deep in thought. But sometimes I caught a look in her eyes, a deep, ancient understanding that I didn't remember seeing before. "Tell me," Emma said, placing her hand on mine, "have you ever regretted bringing me back?" "Never," I said immediately. And that's the truth. No matter how Emma might have changed in Metahimur, no matter what secrets about reality she might have learned, she was still my Emma, and I still loved her more than anything in the world. She smiled, relief clear on her face. "Me too, never regretted coming back, although..." "Although what?" "Sometimes I miss it," she admitted. Not the fear or the loneliness, but the stillness, the feeling as if every possibility was waiting, as if reality was just a choice. I understood what she meant. I had only been in Metahimur for a short time, but I still remembered that feeling, as if the world we knew was just a thin slice of something much larger. "Do you think they'll find a way back?" I asked, changing the subject. "The Watchers?" Emma shrugged. "Magnus said the Pact was reversed. They're trapped for at least 700 years, but if there's one thing I learned, it's that space and time work differently in Metahimur. 700 years for us could be just 7 days for them." A disturbing thought, but the gate is closed, they have no way to cross. "Unless someone opens it," Emma said, "from this side." We looked at each other, an unspoken fear passing between us. Did anyone else know? Had anyone else seen the Watchers? And if so, would they be wise enough not to reopen the gate? "Anyway," Emma sighed, standing up, "I think we should go to bed. Tomorrow's a long day." I nodded, turned off my computer, and followed her into the bedroom. As we lay in the dark, I couldn't help but think of all those who hadn't returned. Anna, Asger, Magnus, and the other nameless souls captured in the 2 previous cycles. They were still in Metahimur, transformed into a part of it. Perhaps still watching us through the broken mirror shards we couldn't find and destroy. I looked over at Emma, who had fallen asleep, and wondered if she dreamed of Metahimur. Did she visit it in her dreams, through the gates the mind can open when consciousness hovers between worlds? The digital clock beside the bed read 1:27 a.m. I closed my eyes, hoping sleep would come quickly. But as I drifted off, I couldn't help but wonder if I would wake up at 3:33. And if I did, would I dare to look in the mirror? There were secrets still hidden, questions still unanswered. About Emma, about the Watchers, about the eternal Watcher Sigrid had found reference to. But those were questions for another day, or perhaps another night tonight when I woke up and saw the clock display 3:33 once again. That night, I dreamed of mirror shards and watching eyes. And in my dream, I saw a door, not in Reykjavik or in our house, but somewhere I had never been. A door that was opening, and behind it, a world of mirrors and shadows waited, and a voice, like 1,000 voices merging into one, whispered, "The fourth cycle has begun." The end. 3:33 a.m. I woke up, my heart pounding. Beside me, Emma still slept soundly, her breath even in the darkness. I looked at the clock and felt a chill run down my spine. 3:33 a.m. A coincidence, I told myself, just a bad dream and a random awakening, nothing to worry about. But the Vegvisir scar on my wrist was burning, almost glowing in the dark. I was no longer sleepy. Careful not to wake Emma, I slid out of bed and walked down the hallway towards the kitchen for a glass of water. As I passed the bathroom, I couldn't help but glance inside. The small mirror above the medicine cabinet reflected the pale moonlight from the window, creating a faint glimmer in the darkness. Don't look, I told myself, just keep going. But I stopped, drawn by a force stronger than reason. Slowly, I stepped into the bathroom, feeling my heart pound harder with each step. I flipped the light switch, but nothing happened. Power outage or something else? In the dim moonlight, I approached the mirror, trying to see my reflection in the darkness. At first, I saw nothing, only shadows and vague shapes. But as my eyes adjusted, I began to realize that my reflection wasn't there. Instead, another face stared back. Emma's, but not the Emma sleeping in our bedroom. This was a different Emma, with completely black eyes, no whites, and a smile that wasn't human. I wondered when you'd look at her, or whatever she appeared to be, she'd say. The voice wasn't entirely Emma's, but a blend of her voice and something else, an echoing sound like shattering glass. "Who are you?" I whispered, gripping the sink for balance. "You're not Emma." "Emma?" The creature in the mirror tilted its head. "Oh, she's not. I'm not her. She's still sleeping, dreaming of the days before she knew about us." "Then what are you?" "I think you already know, Elias Gunnarson," the creature said, its smile widening unnaturally. "You've met my brethren, the Watchers, but they are trapped," I said, trying to sound brave, though my hands and feet were trembling. "We closed the gate, reversed the pact. Yes, they are trapped, but I am not one of the ordinary Watchers. I am the Eternal Watcher. Beyond the pact, beyond the bounds of space and time." I felt my blood run cold. "What do you want?" "Want?" The creature chuckled softly. "I want nothing. I merely observe. It is my nature, our nature, to see, to learn, to remember. And Emma, the others, why take them? Because they can see us. There are rare, special souls who can perceive our presence. They are valuable, they are potential gates." The creature in the mirror moved so close it seemed about to step out of the mirror. "Like you, Elias, you are a gate, not to Metahimur, but to something further." "The fourth cycle," I whispered, remembering the dream. "So you heard the call." The creature nodded, a look of satisfaction on its face. "Good, very good." "I will not open any gates," I said, trying to sound resolute. "I know the cost." "Oh, but you don't have to do anything," the creature said. "The gate is already open." "What? How can that be? Emma," the creature smiled. "Your dear, beautiful Emma. She never truly left Metahimur, you know. A part of her is still there, and a part of that place is still in her. Every time she looks in a mirror, every time she dreams, every time she closes her eyes, the gate opens just a little." I recoiled from the mirror, horrified. "No." "Oh, yes," the creature said, its voice almost gentle. "But don't worry, we are very patient, and we always leave a part of ourselves in anyone who has seen us." The creature moved right to the edge of the mirror, and I could see it wasn't entirely Emma. In the darkness behind her face, I could see the tall, slender form of a Watcher. "Even in you, Elias Gunnarson," the creature whispered, "we have sown the seed. We have marked you, and every time you look in a mirror at 3:33 a.m., you open the gate a little bit more." I shook my head desperately. "I don't believe you." "You don't have to believe," the creature laughed. "Just look at your wrist." I looked down at the Vegvisir scar on my wrist. In the dim moonlight, it was no longer a silver scar. It was darkening, turning black, and in the center the eye had returned. the eye of the watcher. No, I whispered. The fourth cycle has begun, Elias, the creature said, its completely black eyes staring straight into mine. And this time, it's not 7 people. This time, it's everyone. Everyone who has seen their reflection. Everyone who has looked in a mirror and wondered if it was truly them. The creature raised its hand and pressed against the mirror's surface from within. Am I your Emma? Are you the real Elias? Or are we all just reflections looking into the real world from the other side? The mirror's surface rippled like water as the creature's hand pressed against it. But instead of passing through, it stopped, as if encountering an invisible barrier. It seems the time is not yet, the creature said, a hint of disappointment in its voice. But soon, very soon. It receded from the mirror, the faux Emma face slowly dissolving into the darkness. Kiss Emma for me when she wakes up, and remember that we are always watching. And then it vanished, leaving only my reflection in the mirror, a pale, exhausted man with eyes full of terror. I looked down at my wrist again. The scar had returned to normal. A silver Vegvisir without the eye in the center, no sign of the transformation I had just witnessed. I wondered if it had just been an illusion, a waking dream, or a nightmare. But deep down, I knew it was real. The Eternal Watcher was real, and it was watching. When I returned to the bedroom, Emma was still sound asleep, her face peaceful in the moonlight. I looked at her, the woman I loved, the one I had crossed 2 worlds to save, and I wondered, was this truly my Emma, or was she something else, wearing the guise of the person I loved? I climbed into bed, careful not to wake her. As I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I knew sleep wouldn't come to me tonight. Too many questions, too many fears. But one thing I knew for sure, it wasn't over. The 4th cycle had begun, and as I lay there, I couldn't help but think of all the people around the world looking into their mirrors right now. Wondering if they saw something move in the corner of their eye. Wondering if their reflection was truly them. Wondering if the watchers were looking back. And I just knew, that somewhere, someone was waking up at 3:33 a.m., looking into their mirror, and starting the cycle all over again. If you are reading this, be careful what you see in the mirror, especially at 3:33 a.m. Because when you look into a mirror long enough, the mirror also looks back at you, and sometimes what looks back is not you.